Muhammad Ali Shomali. Very warm welcome.
Thank you.
We much hoped, and you too, you hoped very much to be here in presence, to live these days together with us. It was not possible for bureaucratic questions. That's it. That's a pity, but that's it. Here Goda is greeting his friend Muhammad Shomali, and both should have been here, but you are here with us. So, no question about it.
Thank you.
Dr. Muhammad Shomali is the founding director of the International Institute for Islamic Studies in Qom, founding director of the Risalat International Institute, which is devoted to Islamic curriculum development and educational training, among many other initiatives. It is no time to tell all the initiatives linked with his person. He has led numerous Islamic educational courses and seminars in over 30 cities across 4 continents. He's editor of, was active participant in the Shiite Catholic and Shiite Protestant dialogue, editor of many volumes of dialogue, and also of 2 academic journals. Today, now, we give you the word. You gave us the title From Dialogue to Unity, Theological and Spiritual Reflections with particular reference to Wings of Unity. Please, Dr. Shomali.
Thank you very much. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, may peace be with all of you, those who are present in person and those who are present but on Zoom. So I was very much looking forward to meeting all of you, my dear brothers and sisters, but as Stefan said, unfortunately it didn't work out, but I am grateful to God that we are able to connect in this way. And I pray that all the presentations and all the formal and informal conversations that are going to take place in these days and nights would be fruitful. And after this program, I hope we can have better understanding of how we can work together. I will try to share with you some points and reflections which are not just results of some academic study or research, but they are also very much fruits of my involvement in dialogue and then working for unity with some of my dear Christian brothers and sisters. So these are more practical reflections, or you can say reflections coming from the practice as well. Dialogue is a necessity of human life. And I don't mean by a necessity of human life something that today we just need, for example, dialogue because the world is very much mixed and we have, even sometimes in the same neighborhood, people who belong to different faiths, different denominations, and people of no faith living together house, by house. No, it's not just a necessity of life today, although today is maybe more needed, but I think it's a necessity of being a human being. Every human being needs to talk and listen. Every human being needs to exchange and interact with others. Therefore, God the Almighty says in the Quran that one of His blessings upon us is the ability of expressing ourselves. Allamahul bayan. This comes in very high position after talking about creation of human beings, teaching them the scripture. God says God taught human beings how to express themselves. Also, God reminds us of the gift of using pen. اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم. So we need to talk, we need to listen, we need to read, we need to write. No human being can live in his or her own bubble or shell. We need to talk to each other, we need to listen to each other. But it's not only even human beings, this requirement of rationality, requirement of intelligence, requirements of being a knowledgeable being. So even God himself has many cases of dialogue, many cases of talking and listening. In the Quran, we have conversation of God with angels, with even Satan, with Adam, with Abraham, with prophets in general, and to all human beings. Many times it's dialogue. Sometimes it's sending message and we respond and God listens in the form of our prayers, in the form of our conversation with God. But sometimes it's back and forth, very clearly. So dialogue is a necessity of humanity, or even we can go further and say necessity of being rational, being intelligent. But every dialogue at least needs two things, at least. One is the ability to listen. And when I say listen, it's not just, letting the voice of the person goes into your ear. In Arabic, we have two words. One is sama', one is istima'. Sami'a or istama'. Sometimes you just hear, sometimes you listen carefully. Dialogue is a matter of listening carefully. And when I say carefully, it has again different levels. It doesn't mean that you do multitasking only. For example, you stop multitasking and just listen. Because many times someone is talking or something is broadcast. It goes to our ear, but many other thoughts are in our mind. We don't have chance to process. But sometimes also I listen carefully. I don't do anything. I just listen to the person. But again, it's not istima'. It's not good listening. Why? Because I listen to the words of that person, but through my own lenses, through my own filters. It might be very difficult, maybe even sometimes impossible, to listen to people 100% free from filters and lenses, but at least we have to do our best. Let the words of the person reach your heart and mind without them already being interpreted. Let the words reach you, and then you say, okay, now I want to process it. No problem. You can always use your knowledge, background information to process. But first, understand what that person says. Not that even in the process of receiving, already we interpret it. So we don't receive objective presentation of what the other person says. So we need proper listening by having no filter between our mind and heart and that person. Even prior knowledge of that person should be helping us and should be brought to help after receiving the message, not before receiving the message. We find something interesting about the Prophet that one of the things that prophet was very well known for, even sometimes he was criticized for by the pagans or hypocrites, was that the prophet was very much listening to people. Although he had knowledge, he had wisdom, he was receiving revelation from God. On many occasions, Gabriel was talking to the prophet, but he was still very good listener, not only to his close companions, not only to the believers, to everyone, even to his enemies. He was very good listener, to the extent that in chapter 9, verse 61, Surah Tawbah, ayah 61, God says, وَمِنْهُمُ الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ النَّبِيِّ وَيَقُولُونَ هُوَ أُذُنٌ. Some of them annoy the prophet. They say the prophet is ear. The prophet is ear. They don't say the prophet listens too much. They say the prophet is ear. This is for maximum emphasis. You know, when we say someone is just, is different from saying someone is justice. Zaydun adlun. In Arabic, you know, rhetorics, if we want to say someone is very just, we may say he is justice. So they say prophet is ear. And God doesn't say prophet is not ear. God says, yes, he is ear. But أذن خيرا لكم. He's a good ear. So, dialogue needs good listening, and good listening has itself, you know, lots of layers. Number 2, ability to speak. And this has again different layers. Sometimes we are hesitant to meet. Sometimes we are hesitant to talk. Sometimes we are able to talk, but just to release our anger. I say, okay, I'm going to talk to this person, but I just, you know, bombard that person with my words, with my, you know, angry look, just to satisfy my own anger, to release myself from pressure. It's like exploding. But God said to Moses and Aaron, you should go to Pharaoh. Don't wait for Pharaoh to come to you. He may never come. You go to Pharaoh. So God sends 2 of his prophets to meet Pharaoh. God has no hesitation in sending his best people to Pharaoh. And says to Moses, when you go there, you should speak with Pharaoh in a soft manner, soft language. قُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. Don't go and, you know, just argue with him. Don't go to have debate with him. This is not going to work with Pharaoh. You must speak in a very soft language. لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. Maybe Pharaoh remembers. Even in someone like Pharaoh, there is a divine element. There is a divine spirit. Don't lose your hope. Don't say the other person is not listening, useless to talk to him or her. Even with someone like Pharaoh, there is a chance. لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. Maybe he remembers, maybe his heart becomes soft, maybe he would develop some kind of awe and khashya towards God. So, when we talk, we should talk just for serving the truth, not for serving myself, not for serving my ego, even my religious ego. No, just serving the truth, serving God with good manner. Quran says, قُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. When you speak to people, speak in a beautiful manner. Or in another place, يَقُولُ الَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. They should speak in the most beautiful manner. So, dialogue has lots of etiquette and manners. But this dialogue among people of faith, among believers, among Muslims, Christians, Jews, and whoever believes in God, becomes even more necessary. If it is the case with people who are totally different, every human being, even Moses and Pharaoh, have to speak to each other. When it comes to believers in God, it's the most natural thing. It's the most obvious requirement of sharing the same God. Therefore, we find that the Quran says, قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالَوْا إِلَىٰ كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ. In Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 64. My understanding from this ayah, that you are all familiar with, O people of the book, come towards a common word between us, and that is to serve one God and don't associate partners to Him. My understanding is that this is not just an invitation for dialogue. This is not just for calling each other to interreligious dialogue, Muslim-Christian dialogue. It's much more than that. It doesn't say, let us talk, come so that we can talk. It's more than that. Let us get together, or let us rise to the common word among us. It's an invitation for collaboration, not just for talking to each other. If you both believe in God, you have already gone very far. Sometimes I say people, if someone shares with you God and someone doesn't share with you God, what's the difference? It's a real question. We have respect for all human beings. We have respect for people who have no faith. We have respect for people who are atheists. Okay. But if someone believes in God, if there is a person from another denomination or another religion who shares with me God the Almighty, how much you share? What is the value of this common belief? I am of the idea that no matter how much you want to stress on the significance of this, you cannot do justice. I cannot explain what's the value of common faith in God. It's much more important than sharing the same father, the same mother, the same ethnicity. If someone shares with you God, if you are a God-centered person and someone shares with you God, so it means that he shares with you the central point of not only your life or your own identity, because for a believer there is no identity without reference to God. Who am I? I am a servant of God. If I am a servant of God, that would be my identity. Sometimes I use this example. I say, if they ask, for example, the driver of a king, driver, or cook, who are you? If he's very loyal to the king and knows the position that he has, he wouldn't say so and so. If you ask, who are you? He says, I am the driver of the king. He doesn't say, I am, this and that. If you ask a Muslim, a Christian, who are you? He should think, or she should think, I am a believer in God. I am a servant of God. And then someone else says, I am a servant of God. So, okay, we share our identity. Everything else comes under that. I am not denying the differences. Actually, the differences are very important. But I am saying differences remain there. But with the light of God shining, the differences should disappear. Yes, under the light of God, we can look into these differences with a heart full of love for the other party. And this is why we talk, when we talk about unity. When we meet with our focolare, for example, brothers and sisters, we are not having just dialogue. Maybe we have started 25 years ago as dialogue. But this is no longer a dialogue. We don't have two sides of the desk. In many kinds of dialogue, even if it's genuine, even if it's respectful, even they really want to listen to each other, still there are two sides. This is Muslim panel, this is Christian panel. Every panel tries to present themselves in the best possible way. They pray, oh God, please help me to show how great is Islam, how great is Christianity. Please enable me to show that our tradition is better. We have better thinkers, we have better theology, we have better spirituality. Just for your sake, help us to show them that we are better. Many kinds of dialogue are like this. But if you have unity, it's different. There is no this side or that side. Only one side, and that's God. One center, God. Oh God, please help us, help them, so that we can better understand your will. We don't want to be better than them. We just want to come to you together. Help my Christian brothers, help my Muslim brothers and sisters, Christian brothers and sisters, that today they would be in the best possible form and format to present what they have. I am grateful for what you have given to the other tradition, as I am grateful for what you have given to my tradition. I think this is where mysticism helps. If you are grateful to God only for your own children, but not grateful for God for the children of your neighbor, you are not grateful. If you thank God for the flowers in your garden and not for flowers in the garden of your neighbor, you are not grateful. If you are grateful to God for every flower in any part of the world, you are hopefully grateful. Still, we have to test other things as well. But this is a sign, it's a positive sign. I must be grateful to God for every Christian person in the course of history that has tried to do something for the sake of God. I have to be grateful for every Christian who has tried to make a church, to make a monastery, to make a university, a seminary, sincerely for the sake of God. And my Christian brothers and sisters should also be grateful to God for everything that Muslims did sincerely to remember God, to get closer to God, if we are really God-centered. So what we have been trying in the last 6 years or so, with our friends in Sophia University, with especially Piero and the whole team, Benny, Roberto, Rita, and other colleagues of Sophia, was that we said, thanks to God, we have had dialogue, we love each other, we trust each other. Even with Piero, I have made pact of love, so we are happy to die for each other. Now let us listen to God. We talk to each other, but just to prepare ourselves to tune to God. God, please talk to us. If you see our humble circle, it's not two sides, it's now a circle. It's a circle. And God is the center. Please talk to us. Please talk to Piero so that Piero can tell me. Please talk to Roberto, to Benny, to Rita, whoever. It doesn't matter. You want to talk to me, to them, or even someone outside our circle. We want to know what you want from us. We appreciate your message from any channel that you like. Just we want to understand your will. We want to understand how you want us to proceed. So now we listen to God. Instead of just having dialogue with each other, we try to listen to God, but with two ears. A Muslim ear and a Christian ear. Sometimes God has spoken to both ears. We have received the same message. Sometimes maybe God has inspired a Muslim saint or a Christian saint, and we need that also. So I cannot say I only listen with Muslim ear, or a Christian says I only listen with a Christian ear. No. We listen with both ears, and if there is any other ear, we use so that we don't miss anything from God. And this needs great work on our humility, on getting rid of our ego, even religious ego. Many times we hide our ego under our religion. I want my own glory. I want my own, fame, power. But I say it is because of Islam, or because of Christianity, or because of Shia Islam, or Sunni Islam, or Catholicism. But many times, I'm not saying 100%, but many times it's all our personal game, our selfish game. We are just hiding, sometimes even unknowingly, we hide our ego behind these pretexts. We should get rid of ego. I should be able to think about everything as much as possible, never become perfect, but from God's perspective, not from a Muslim perspective or a Christian perspective, from God's perspective. Many times we have attempted to convert God, to make God Muslim, make God Christian, but God is not Muslim, God is not Christian, God is not Jew. God is God. If you are a good Muslim, try to understand will of God and attitude of God, and look at people the way that God looks at people. If you are a good Christian, the same. Instead of us imposing our human limited view on God, let us rise and adopt godly view. We never become perfect, but let us try. And when we are together with people who have made God center of in their life from other traditions, it helps us to go further to the core and to the center of faith, rather than remaining into the layers of your own denomination or your own, tradition. When we are together, we are in a very good position to be able to have the pure connection with God. I'm not saying it's impossible to have it when we are alone or we are with our own people, but this is a great practice that can help you other places. If you feel that presence of people of other faiths or other denominations disconnects you from God or weakens your connection with God, this means you have not been connected to God. This means that you are not able to see the face of God everywhere. So we have to train ourselves. We have to practice. And this is something that is very much helped with the presence of people from other traditions who are God-centered. So, in Wings of Unity, the idea is that we love each other, we trust each other. Now we want to see how we can move towards God with unity and how we can help others to also be equipped with whatever they need, theological, spiritual, practical reflections, experiences in their unity. And thanks to God, sometime we have tested this. In 2017, in August 2017, we had about 50 Christian and Muslim youths in Tonadico. Many of them had attended such programs for the first time in their life. To be with Muslims, some of them had not met Muslims before, some had not, traveled with Christians before. But for 1 week, we were together, and thanks to God, it reached so high that they shared with us the beautiful experiences that they had when they prayed together in Dolomites and other places. So I am very grateful to God that now we are able to work together with more friends, and maybe we can find in these days and nights some ways that we can work together more for the sake of God, which is for the sake of humanity. Anything belongs to God, belongs to all human beings. So maybe God inspires us to understand what other platforms or opportunities are available to work for unity. And I thank all of you, the organizers, the sponsors, the presenters, and those who are present, for your dedication. May God be always with you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Somebody wants to share, ask, add something to this. Thank you very much, dear Dr. Shumari.
Thank you.
These beautiful words, this passionate speech. Yes, Saida, you want to, yes, please, microphone for Saida Nasadri.
Thanks a lot, Professor Shumari, for a very interesting lecture.
You're welcome.
I'm not very familiar with your project. I'm coming from the background of philosophy of religion, and we have much to read comparative theology. So my question is, like, the focus of your speech was on our love and trust in God, and that together we go towards God, and we should be God-centered, etc., etc. But my question is, who is God? I mean, what is this God? Because I would say, like, Christians, Jews, Muslims have different images of God, and then you said, like, we have to try to see the matter from the perspective of God, not from our own perspectives. And the question is then, how can we know what God wants and what is the divine perspective? In comparative theology, we say we sit together and talk. Many things you mentioned, I mean, what is the theological basis for your dialogue? Because in comparative theology, the openness is very important, which you also mentioned, good listening and speaking in a best manner. These things pre-require openness and humility that you mentioned. These are all in comparative theology. So my question is very much, what is the theological foundation for this dialogue? Because otherwise it's just scratching on the surface. We sit together, we eat and pray, and so, but we need some theological background or basis for that.
Thank you very much. Yes, so the beauty of our experience of Wings of Unity is that those who are involved are people who have deep roots in their own tradition. So you don't need me to talk about, for example, Piero. Piero is one of the best Catholic theologians in the world. Many others, they are top professors. So it's not that they are not aware of their theology. Or, for example, from our side, we have people that have academic, seminarian background, publications, etc. And every time we meet in Wings of Unity, we have topic, we discuss. And, for example, just in the first round of Wings of Unity, when we talked about unity of God and unity in God, for a few days we talked, and just my 3 lectures are now published as a book. So we engage in theology very strongly. But thanks to God, our theology is not a theology that is independent from spirituality. It's a theology which is very young, original, authentic, but young and fresh. A theology that benefits from our spiritual experiences, but is able to explain them, and is able to also shed light. So one of the beauties of Wings of Unity is that theology and spirituality go hand in hand. We don't want to compromise about our theology. But we don't want also our theology to be a theology that would not be able to explain our experiences. No matter what some theologians may say. Some theologians, not all, some. I know that they believe in the same God. I know that they have dedicated themselves to God. And I many times feel envious. I know there are many Sunnis who are better than me, as there are many Shias who are better than me, and there are many Christians who are better than me in their dedication to God. I know this by every cell of my body, that there are people who have dedicated themselves to God, and their God is the same God. If a theology cannot explain this, that's their problem. I know it's the same God.
Yeah, thank you very much. Somebody else wants to put a question? Add, share something? Otherwise, I would say, just a moment, I have to open my laptop. Nobody in the internet section has a question. Raise the hand. No. Okay. So please present yourself.
I'm Florin again from Blaga University. Thank you for your presentation. So I would like to ask you if your conditions for theological dialogue can be taken as more psychological conditions, since they are coming from us, and the result will be kind of theological consequences.
Did you hear, Dr. Romani?
Yeah.
Did you hear the question?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you finish? Yes. Did you complete your question?
No, do not repeat.
No, okay, so this is the main question that I had after listening to your talk. So what you presented, my impression was that it was presented from our perspective, and our perspective is a human perspective, but we can talk after the dialogue is possible, about a theological perspective. Since the dialogue is human-centered, we can be sometimes, or maybe permanently, in a vicious circle. So we talk, but we cannot transcend the dialogue. The dialogue is most of the time a kind of monologue. Yeah, so we listen to each other, but we don't manage to have a dialogue in the sense of two logoi, so two speeches, which convert to a monologue. So ideally is the dialogue to be a monologue is possible. Coming to this conference, the conference is about mysticism and dialogue. So this is again an oxymoron, so a kind of contradiction, because the mystical experience is personal, but the dialogue is not personal. So it's open. So it's to some extent transcends the personal experience, the dialogue. So the dialogue is the opening to the other person, not to God especially. So to summarize, the comment of the question is if what you talked is more psychological than theological. Thank you.
You're welcome. You know, faith has different elements. Faith is related to reason. Faith is related also to the heart. Faith is something to believe, something to practice, but also a matter of love. If someone believes in all the doctrines and practices everything, but has no love in heart, this faith is not complete. And if someone has just love but doesn't know where this love comes from and how to orient this love, again, it's not complete. We need both reason and faith. We need both mind and heart. We need our personal connection with God, but also we need community. We need relations with other people. We cannot go to God alone. I don't accept that this is a good way to go to God alone. If you want to go to God alone, there is a chance that you are maybe going away from God. My understanding of spirituality and mysticism is that whoever goes closer to God becomes closer to people, becomes more humble, more kind, more approachable. So, what we want to say is that we have this in our own traditions, but unfortunately we didn't expand it to people of other faiths. So for example, I think, okay, my own community helped me in my journey towards God, and also it's my responsibility to look after my community. But who is my community? Shia community, or Sunni community, or Orthodox community, or Protestant community, or Catholic community. Then even inside each, we divide it further. But we want to say my community has different branches and compartments, but my community is community of God. Whoever is journeying towards God is my community. And without them, I cannot go closer to God. God is going to ask me, what did you did for my people? I cannot say I just, dedicate myself to you. Or I can just say, I, reflected on theology all my life and, wrote about theology and studied about theology. theology has to be put into the light of practice. Theology has to be brought into the real life scenarios, inspired by them and also checked by them. If you develop a theology that we see is leading to the war and conflict, this is not a good theology, no matter how good you are in your training. It has to be tested in real life. A good theology must bring people closer to each other. A good theology must make them more kind, more humble, more grateful, more helpful. The Quran says, "Man ahsanu dinan mimman aslama wajhahu lillah wa huwa muhsin." You have to be benefactor. You cannot say, I am a deep theological, person, for example, or I follow this, theological school, and for us charity is not important, peacekeeping is not important. We just do theology. I don't think this is a good theology.
I think we go now. We take the next step. I want now to invite the next speaker of our morning, Mahnas Haydarpour. Dr. Mahnas Haydarpour. She is a graduate of the Islamic Seminary of Qom. He has teaching experience in different fields: Arabic grammar, Islamic history, theology, morality, world religion. 2 books are known of her, written by her: Love,